under a sky heavy with impending doom. Sergeant Major Morris walks a dark, muddy road. The wind howls a mournful dirge, bending the ancient trees like skeletal figures. His silhouette is stark against the faint, distant glow of a cottage window. Each step sinks into the mud, the silence broken only by the wind's relentless cry. An ominous journey unfolds under the cloak of night towards an uncertain welcome. Inside the White family cottage, a fire crackles, casting a warm glow on the cozy living room. Mr. White and Herbert are deep in concentration over a chess game, their faces lit by the flickering flames. Nearby, Mrs. White's knitting needles click rhythmically, a counterpoint to the silent strategy. Laughter echoes softly, filling the room with an atmosphere of familial warmth and joy. The White family cottage glows warmly, a haven against the encroaching night. Morris arrives, his figure framed in the doorway, a hesitant visitor in a place of comfort. Greetings are exchanged, but a palpable unease clings to Morris like a shroud. He is welcomed, yet a shadow lingers in his eyes, betraying hidden burdens. A forced smile masks a deeper turmoil as he steps inside. The warmth of the cottage struggles to penetrate the chill that Morris carries with him. Morris, a weathered man with eyes that hold distant lands, sits by the crackling fireplace. Exotic artifacts gleam in the firelight. A silk tapestry, a jeweled dagger, and a small, shriveled object. And this, my friends, is the monkey's paw, Morris says, his voice heavy with warning. I warn you, do not trifle with it. It is cursed, he warns, his eyes reflecting the dancing flames. Inside the White family cottage, weathered Morris recounts the paw's dark history, his voice a somber melody. Morris speaks of a fakir spell, a grim lesson on fate. A fakir placed a spell on it, to their sorrow. With a grimace, Morris hurls the cursed paw into the fireplace, flames rising to consume its fur. Driven by an inexplicable impulse, Mr. White lunges, his eyes reflecting the dancing firelight. Mr. White snatches the paw from the fiery embrace, defying the ominous warning. The cottage air thickens with unspoken dread as Mr. White clutches the cursed object. Inside the White family cottage, Morris stands firm, his face etched with urgency. He gestures emphatically, attempting to convey the gravity of his warning to Mr. White. The air is thick, with unspoken dread, hanging heavy between them. If you must wish for something reasonable, Morris urges, his voice laced with desperation. Morris prepares to leave, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The weight of his warning lingers as he turns to depart, leaving Mr. White in silent contemplation. Alone in the cottage, Mr. White clutches the monkey's paw, his face a mask of curiosity and doubt. His eyes shut tight, he gathers his resolve, focusing intently on the paw's coarse fur. A tense silence hangs in the air as he utters, I wish for 200 pounds. The room remains still, but a subtle shift in the air hints at unseen forces at play. Inside the White family cottage, an unsettling silence hangs heavy, broken only by the crackling fire. The paw twists ominously in his grip, a dark portent materializing in the dim light. A sudden, violent crash reverberates from upstairs, shattering the stillness. Eyes widen with alarm, the mundane tranquility now irrevocably tainted by dread. An oppressive unease descends upon the room, each shadow seeming to deepen with malevolence. Mr. White jolts awake, terror etched on his face, drenched in a cold sweat. The nightmare's paw lingers in his mind. He gasps for air, his heart pounding violently against his ribs, struggling to shake off the lingering fear. Mrs. White stirs beside him, her face etched with concern as she reaches out to comfort her distressed husband. Another nightmare, dear? She asks softly, her voice a gentle balm. It's just your imagination running wild. Under the daylight, Herbert arrives at the factory, his face lit with a cheerful smile and his steps full of a palpable spring. Herbert appears full of life, his energy a stark contrast to the looming factory behind him. The factory dominates the background, a symbol of industry and labor against Herbert's cheerful disposition. A cacophony of noise pours from the factory, a mechanical symphony of labor. The heavy machinery operates relentlessly within, hinting at a dangerous, chaotic environment. Herbert approaches the entrance, his smile unwavering despite the intense sounds of the factory. A smartly dressed man approaches the White family cottage, his arrival casting a shadow over the idyllic scene. His face is grave, a stark contrast to the quaint charm of the cottage. He pauses, the weight of his message heavy in the air, before knocking on the door. The door opens, revealing a hopeful face soon to be shattered by the visitor's words. "I'm here to inform you of a terrible accident," the man begins, his voice laced with sorrow. The cottage suddenly feels smaller, the air thick with impending dread as he continues. At the factory involving Herbert, inside the White family cottage, a somber man stands, his presence heavy with unspoken grief and grim news. He explains the unthinkable. Herbert, caught in the relentless machinery at work, a fatal accident. The air thickens with the weight of his words, each syllable a hammer blow to the heart. Extending his hands, he offers Mr. White 200 pounds, a paltry sum against an immeasurable loss. The money hangs in the air, a stark, inadequate symbol of a life brutally cut short. Grief and disbelief wash over Mr. White as he stares at the offered compensation. Mr. and Mrs. White sit in their cottage, sorrow etched deep into their faces. The air is thick with grief, a suffocating blanket of despair. On the table, the 200 pounds lie as a cruel reminder, a stark testament to a wish granted and a price paid in sorrow. Weeks turn into silent echoes within the White family cottage, a heavy silence hanging in the air. Mrs. White sits hunched, her face a canvas of grief, etched with lines of sorrow and despair. Her red, swollen eyes fixate on the monkey's paw, clutching it as if it is the last lifeline to hope. Tears stream down her face as she pleads, "We have to use it again. We have to wish Herbert back." Her voice cracking with desperation, she begs Mr. White, "Please, Mr. White, please, bring our boy back." The weight of her plea hangs heavy, filling the cottage with a palpable sense of loss and yearning. Mr. White stares in horror. Morris's warnings echo against the backdrop of Herbert's mangled form, torn between dread and despair. He wrestles with the terrible implications of their desperate act. Mrs. White's grief washes over him, eroding his resolve with its overwhelming force. He looks at her face, etched with inconsolable pain, and a heavy, resigned sigh escapes. Inside the White family cottage, the fire crackles, casting long shadows as Mr. White trembles, clutching the monkey's paw. His face, a mask of desperation and fragile hope, is illuminated by the flickering flames. His shaking hands tighten around the cursed object, ready to make his wish. He focuses his will, his lips moving in a silent plea, the cottage holding its breath. The only sound is the fire, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold dread in the air. Silence blankets the cottage, heavy and expectant. Every creak of the house is magnified, each shadow a potential threat. They wait, eyes wide and darting, listening for any telltale sound. Anxiety claws at them as the stillness stretches on, unbroken. Hours drift by in the White family cottage, each tick of the clock amplifying the silence and dread. The Whites lie in their beds, sleep evading them, their eyes wide in the darkness. Outside, the wind begins to howl, a mournful cry that echoes through the night. The cottage windows rattle violently, as if the storm is trying to claw its way inside. Shadows dance on the walls, twisting familiar shapes into monstrous figures. Fear hangs heavy in the air, an unseen presence that suffocates and chills. The White family cottage is cloaked in the shadows of night, silent and still under the watchful stars. A slow, deliberate knock shatters the quiet, its echo carrying a heavy, unnatural weight. The unsettling sound pierces the darkness, each reverberation amplifying the growing dread. The cottage seems to hold its breath, awaiting the unseen presence beyond the door. Inside the cottage, Mrs. White's face is illuminated with a hopeful gleam, convinced of Herbert's return. Mr. White, terrified, reaches out, his pleas unheard in the small, echoing cottage. Ignoring his desperate warnings, she is rushing towards the cottage door. Her footsteps echo louder, her heart pounding with anticipation. The cottage door looms, promising a reunion or a nightmare. Inside the cottage, Mr. White's face is ashen. His hands tremble violently as he desperately searches. His eyes dart around the room, reflecting a deep-seated primal terror. He frantically looks for the monkey's paw, the source of his family's torment. A growing dread fills him as he realizes the horror that awaits beyond the door. Each shadow seems to lengthen, each sound amplifying his fear. He understands the unspeakable horror lurking just outside. The knocking escalates, each strike echoing with urgency and dread within the White family cottage. Mrs. White's frantic struggle with the stubborn bolt intensifies, her desperation growing with each passing moment. Her trembling hands fight against the unyielding metal, a silent battle against the unseen force at the door. The insistent pounding amplifies the suffocating tension, mirroring Mrs. White's escalating fear and mounting anxiety. Inside the White family cottage, a sense of anticipation hangs heavy as Mrs. White reaches for the door. A fateful moment unfolds as Mr. White, driven by an unseen force, makes the final wish. The air crackles with unseen energy as the cottage seems to hold its breath. The room is filled with an oppressive silence, masking the consequences of the wish. Everything changes in an instant. At the White family cottage, the sudden cessation of knocking amplifies the night's stillness. Silence falls like a heavy shroud, pregnant with unspoken anticipation. The wind, a moment ago howling, retreats into a mere whisper. The cottage is plunged into an eerie quiet, the darkness seeming to press closer. Every shadow seems to deepen, holding its breath in the expectant hush. The cottage door creaks open, revealing Mrs. White silhouetted against an empty, oppressive road. Her face, a canvas of despair, gazes into the darkness, searching for a glimmer of hope. Behind her, Mr. White stands frozen, a statue carved from grief and disbelief. His knuckles are white as he clutches the monkey's paw, a symbol of shattered dreams. The fire crackles softly, the only sound in the suffocating silence of the White's grief.